Hello, I'm Jared.
And I'm Ebony, and this is his
And hers.
Warhammer 40K.
Yay!
We're back.
We're back, and today we'll be discussing Echoes of Eternity by Aaron Dembski-Bowden.
Which we're super excited about.
It was the 7th book in the Siege of Terra series, I believe.
I think that's right.
Yeah. We have one more book, technically 2, because then Amit decided he gets a part 1 and part 2, I suppose.
But the Emperor fights Horus, right? It's happening.
I mean, the final book is, I think it's called The End and the Death.
Okay.
Part 1 and part 2.
That sounds promising.
I won't get into why that title. Not a huge fan of it.
Okay.
But today, Echoes of Eternity, which I have mixed feelings on.
Oh, Jared's going to go on a rant today.
It's not a rant.
I love
no.
it. I love a rant.
No. So, if someone asked me, is there any Siege of Terra book that I could read on its own without having to read any other Siege of Terra books, I think this would be the one.
I could agree with that.
I feel it is the most self-contained of any of the Siege stories.
I would agree.
And in the afterword, ADB did mention like he didn't want to touch on any of the ongoing plots with the Perpetuals, and with some of the other major characters. Like almost all of the characters here are self-contained either to this book or to Aaron's other novels in the Horus Heresy.
And you think that's a detraction?
It makes it not a super great like siege book if you're following the siege for the ongoing story.
I guess I would say that I agree with that opinion, but I don't think it's a detraction. I like a 40K book that is contained, that is a complete story start to finish. These characters have an arc.
Yes, but this is book 7 in an 8-book series.
Yes, but
people are invested in the storylines that are ongoing.
I get
Introducing new storylines, at the very least, those new storylines are all brought to completion in this novel.
I guess, but like, you know, I would say like the Harry Potter series. Each book is an individual standalone book. You don't necessarily have to have read them in order, but like that is a complete story in that novel. And I appreciate that. And I also can appreciate that if you're here for this giant overarching story that like you get a little bit of it sprinkled in there.
You don't though.
I mean, the siege is happening. That's all the sprinkling I needed.
There are so many hanging plot threads through the siege, and this touches on maybe one of them.
Okay, fine.
You know.
I will agree to disagree.
On the other hand, I also think this is a fantastic Blood Angels book.
Okay.
If you're a fan of the Blood Angels, there's so much good stuff here for you.
Yeah, I liked all of that sort of origin story of like what we think of as modern Blood Angels, or I guess what I think of as modern Blood Angels, versus what they were like previously.
Yeah, so what we really get to see a lot of on the Blood Angel side is novelization of what used to be just in their Forge World Black book, which is their presentation as the Revenant Legion.
Mm-hmm.
The Revenant Legion is what they were known as before Sanguinius took them over. Them along with, I want to say, the early Space Wolves and Night Lords were the 3 sort of most vicious, most hated legions in terms of how the general populace thought of them.
Yeah, I was into them like eating people on the battlefield and being terrifying. Like I really enjoyed those scenes, and I don't think I've read a lot of modern Blood Angels, a couple, but like yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was like sort of gory and bloody, but like dark. And it had a very like vintage vibe. I was super into it.
There are 2, so there's one element to them as the Revenant Legion that wasn't touched on, and one that really was, and I was so glad to see it. Before Sanguinius was made, what was found, all of the legions had a Legion Master who sort of filled that role.
Yeah.
The Legion Master of the Revenant Legion always had the same name.
Yeah.
And when he died,
the new Legion Master like eats him in
the new Legion Master eats him
and takes his memories.
And because Space Marines have a particular organ that allows for the transference of memories, however, in Blood Angels, that organ is way stronger. Like normally, you take a few bites of someone, you get like a few of their last moments.
Omophagia?
It's the omophagia, yeah.
Yeah.
For the Blood Angels, in this particular case, we're not sure on like what the precise differences are. The entire body is consumed by someone, and it is a full personality transfer.
Yeah, I thought that was super cool.
Yeah,
that
was really cool. The element that was not really touched on here is the way the Revenant Legion worked is they were a fire and forget type of legion in which you would launch them at a completely, taken over, dominated planet, come back in 4 months, and you'd have more Marines than you started with. Because something that Blood Angels Gene Seed is very good at is working in even mutated hosts. And so they would basically kidnap the children of their enemies and forcibly implant them. This is sort of portrayed in modern Blood Angels lore. The planet Baal has a very high mutant population, and they kind of pull back from using the mutant population as much because there's worries that it ties into the presentation of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage, but in general, it functions really well even in mutated humans. Iron Warriors is the other gene seed that has is considered very robust in terms of you can put it in just about anyone and get a Space Marine out of it.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I enjoyed the sort of history of Blood Angels Legion, and I will say, as someone who's kind of lukewarm on Sanguinius, I was really enjoying Sanguinius in this novel.
This is definitely the best portrayal of Sanguinius.
Yeah.
I
don't hate him, but I just, when it was like sort of the secret empire, and he was like whiny about
Imperium Secundus.
when he was like whiny about being the face of it, I was like, meh, get over it. So like, I like this. I like Sanguinius. I like Warrior Sanguinius.
Yeah. Sanguinius is definitely an excellent element here. We also get a major focus from the perspective of Amit. Amit is a captain of the Blood Angels who will go on to found the Flesh Terrors chapter, who are famous in modern 40k for various reasons. Okay. But basically, he was sort of the closest to the World Eaters in terms of his personality and his fighting style. And he gets paired a lot in this novel with Cargos.
Yeah, and those flashbacks are good. Like, when they had this close relationship and they were, like, sword brothers and literally tied together and had to fight each other. And then now that they're at odds with World Eaters, you get a lot of that flashback. And I thought it was good characterization, but it felt, a little bit...
No, what do you mean?
It felt like a little... I feel like I enjoyed the Amit Cargos more than I enjoyed, like, Sanguinius Angron.
Well, that's fair.
And I don't know that. I don't know that was the intention.
No, I think they are very different from one another.
Okay.
Like, this sort of goes back to, like, if I had to pick one Siege of Terra book to read independently, this would be it. Because my main problem with the Amit Cargo storyline is we kind of just saw it in Warhawk with Sigismund and Karn.
Yes.
Like, it's very similar.
Well, I feel like that is going to... I feel like a major theme of the Siege story is brothers against brothers, right? So I feel like it also probably isn't going to be the last time we see it.
This one was even more similar than that. They were they were World Eater chain brothers who are now facing off against each other. One who is raging crazy, one who is sort of a controlled anger.
Yeah.
And the same one wins.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
Also, I would say maybe I liked Karn Sigismund better than Amit Cargos.
That's what I'm saying. Like, on its own, if I had not read Warhawk, I would have thought it was great.
Okay.
Here, it just feels a little rehashed.
Redundant. Yeah. Okay.
However, I did really like Cargos and... What's his name? The Word Bearer.
The Word Bearer, whose name I don't remember. But
I need to check his name.
Yeah, he was like a Word Bearer, like chaplain, like basically a preacher. But he was very sort of intense and bloody, and it worked really well for the World Eaters.
He was a wonderful comparison against Kargos.
Yeah, and then and it's great that they think
Inzar,
he is this zealot, and in the beginning that's fine for the World Eaters, but then when Kargos meets his end, Enzar's whatever, people die, keep it moving.
Yep.
It just is very...
Throughout the whole book, Inzar's I'm your friend, I'm with you, we're together till the end, and he totally turns on him.
Yeah, and it's great.
It's great. Inzar was a wonderful addition for a one-off character, essentially.
I like a word bearer story.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good.
What else?
What's your favorite part of this book? Because I have a favorite part, but...
Oh, so there's another side to this that we didn't really touch on, which is the human side. And something this book really hammers in on, especially in the first half, is how much everything sucks.
Yeah. The opening is basically about how much everything sucks.
Terra is just non-existent at this point. It just goes on and on with how much damage this siege has done on a physical and mental and spiritual level to everyone
all humans
involved.
On both sides. Yeah. The opening scene with Lotara Sarin on the World Eater ship, where she's looking out and she sees Terra and is in this pall of dust and death, and everything is terrible, and for a while the traders think they're doing the right thing, we are saving Terra, right? And she looks out of her viewports and she's we're destroying Terra. Not to mention that everyone is basically a zombie on the bridge of her ship, and they're literally falling apart, and she hasn't drunk any water in 17 months. That's a whole thing. And Karn is creeping around behind her. It's great. Those scenes are great. I would say it's a little bit too long on the everything is dusty and the world is dying for me, but it's very creepy and unsettling and unnerving, and makes you uncomfortable on that ship and watching what's happening on Terra. I enjoyed that. I enjoy Latara Sarin, not just in this book. She's been a great character.
Everyone loves Latara Sarin.
Yeah.
She has easily been one of the biggest fan favorite characters of the Horus Heresy.
And what's happening on their ship is pretty great. But I would say on planet side, my favorite scene is sort of Sanguinius being this general running this what is clearly a failing defense, and there's this scene where Latara Sarin has used some sort of chaos magic to be able to watch what's going on, right? They're spying, and she gets to watch Sanguinius getting these reports from his sort of under generals, and it's by hololith or whatever reports are coming in, and all the reports are bad. It's we're holding the Astronomicon and we're all about to die. And we're holding this place and we're all about to die.
Yep.
And I think that maybe it's Corswain and the Raven Guard are in the Astronomicon?
Dark Angels.
Dark Angels. I always get them confused. I don't know.
They're not at all alike.
The dark, and also that's a continuation because we saw them get there in a previous book.
Yeah, I think it is, but also it's really not touched on.
Yeah.
We don't really see Corswain holding that.
Yeah, so they're there in the Astronomicon, and they say, we'll come get you, Lord Sanguinius. We can fight our way to you and reinforce your position. And Sanguinius is you have to hold the Astronomicon because it's going to be the last thing that anyone will ever have to remember us. He is conceding that they're going to lose, and it's super moving and powerful. I might have teared up a little bit. It was great. I highlighted it. It's probably going to be the thing that I read. Yeah, it's great. It's my favorite scene of the whole book.
If I had to choose a favorite scene, well, actually, before I get there, the book is filled with all of these little, half-chapter vignettes of showing last stands and just...
Yeah, all of those are great.
The trudging on of everyone on every side. We get Traitor Titans, we get Skitari, we get... a character that was in a short story. He's a space wolf. He was sent to be part of the Watch Pack. Do you remember the Watch Packs for the Primarchs?
Yeah.
He was sent to be Rogel Dorn's Watch Pack. And in the short story about it, he's it's Rogel Dorn. Why are we being sent?
Why am I watching
really?
him?
You think he's going to go traitor?
Yeah, that's a great story. I would say maybe my favorite sort of little anecdote story, but it really isn't a little anecdote. It's on the front lines and a major part of the story. Sanguinius is there for a part of it. Is Zephon and Archenland.
Well, we'll get to that because that's the one where it gets put in among the other little like short stories as thinking like, okay, this is just going to be a one-off.
Yeah.
But that one continues.
Yeah, that's a good story.
What did
I also like the sort of story of Zephon's, which ties into Archenland's, of his like thralls who put on his armor.
Yes.
Right. Like,
that was great. I really enjoyed Zephon, who we've seen in a couple of novels, is Blood Angel captain who damaged his hands. Lan fixed them.
And he was like in the sort of stasis.
Well, he was on the front lines and
Yeah.
then got hurt.
Yeah.
And so was put into stasis to try and recover.
Oh, didn't he get hurt saving that remembrancer? Like he wrapped her in his body during an explosion. Yeah. And she is back too. She's in this story for a real quick second. They like pass each other in the hallway, like he's up and he's getting dressed, and she's like, "Oh, it's good to see you alive. I came to the palace with your body because remember in the end of that book, she was like, wherever you're taking him, I want to go." Yeah, so that's a continuation. I forget her name, but like I love that little story that they have this sort of relationship. I like Zephon a lot.
Zephon was an enjoyable character. He also goes on to become a chapter master of, I think it's a third founding chapter. I'm trying to remember
I could see that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. You can talk about the Archenland story with Transacta.
Yeah, so it starts. I remember, so I both read the book and listen to the audiobook so I can listen to it on my way to work. And I remember it starting with Transacta 7Y, who is she's Mechanicus, so she's...
Skitaris.
Yeah, she's a Skitari, and she is with, like, a human person. There's, like, a mostly human person with her, and whatever it is that they had been holding is getting overrun. And so, like, this guy is getting radiation poison from her. She has a weapon that she can use, but it will release this radiation that's going to kill this human who's with her. And it does, and that's really sad. You get a little bit of their relationship.
So Skitari weapons are actually pretty horrifying because they don't, like, that's not from discharging the weapon.
It just is radiation.
It is radiation, like just openly.
Super safe. Yeah. Oh, okay. But like, yeah, he's like, it's fine. Like, we'll die doing this thing. And so he dies, and she gets really hurt. And at the same time, somewhere else, I think Arkand is really hurt, and he needs another Mechanicus person to save him. So his like Artificimian, his like little mechanical monkey, finds Transacta and like gives her a weapon that she's never used before, and she's like, oh man, this thing's super great, and like drags her back to Arkand, and so they become a unit. And
his Artificimian is basically Lan's understanding of what a monkey is.
Yeah, it's called like Sapien. It's named Sapien.
It's named Sapien. It has a scorpion tail.
It doesn't look anything like a monkey.
That's what the fossils are. If anyone knows the one XKCD image where like a time traveler comes back in time to see spiders, and they're like, spiders have died out, but now like kids are obsessed with them and there's theme parks about them, and they see a spider on a web and they're like, what is that? It's like, well, spiders produce webs. And I'm like, that's not in any of our fossils. And they look at each other and go, oh man, dinosaurs must have been real weird.
Yeah, it's
the
very,
same thing.
it's very much not a monkey, but it's kind of a monkey. Yeah, but it speaks in perfect cant, right? Like,
well, it speaks in a form of techno-linguist
that's super pure.
That is so pure. It is essentially its own saint.
Yeah,
for like a normal
speaks
Skitari.
to her, and she's like, "Oh my God, this thing is an angel. What is it?" And then it gives her this magical weapon that Arkand has made that like she uses to defend his like injured person and drag him back behind the lines. And she's like, "What is happening?" And like he is a saint to her too.
Yeah.
And they develop this relationship, but like Arkand is very much a grumpy puss.
Yeah, the whole novel.
Yeah, but like he grabs Zephon on their way out before he gets injured and gets Transacta, and that's how we get the story of Zephon's thralls who dress him and what's happening to Zephon in sort of that transition from like trying to get out of danger. And so they're all together. They're like this little family unit that like Zaphon has asked Arkan to watch after his thralls, who are a husband and wife and their son. And Arkan is going to take care of Transacta, and they have Sapien, and they had this really like intense conversation where Arkan asked Zaphon if he's afraid, and Zaphon asks Arkan if he's afraid, and he says yes, and like he starts crying, and it's super emotional, and the whole time like Zaphon is emotional and like intense, and he's been trying to like make Arkan a nicer person, and they have this whole conversation, and it, like it's going well, and like Arkan is crying, and then the end of it, and he's like, yeah, I don't have time for babies or feelings or whatever. And Zaphon is like, oh, you're so close. You were so close to being a worthwhile person. But like they are great friends and love each other. It just is a super weird, awkward relationship. And so I would say that's probably my second favorite happening in the book. Just that small family unit. Of course, almost everyone dies.
They all get cut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Cargos or Angron? I can't remember. Who cut them down?
I think the family unit, the mom and dad die. The son, who is going to become Zaphon's new thrall, primary thrall, I think Arkan saves him, actually. Transacta, I think, dies. But I think Arkan and the son of the thralls and Sapien probably live, but I could be wrong.
I'm trying to remember who it was that killed them.
It was either... I don't think it was Cargos, because Cargos got killed by Amit sort of farther out. So I think it might have been Angron. I think like Angron stepped on someone. That's definitely a thing that happens.
No, it was Cargos.
Oh, okay.
But it was from Cargos' point of view.
Oh.
So it's just like there was a Skitari here and an old man and a tiny monkey and I tore it to pieces.
Yeah, but I think that Arkan survives.
Yes.
And Sapien survives and the son. Like I think
Right.
Arkan saves the son.
The Charnel Guard is the name of the successor chapter that Zaphon will go on to lead, who have a very interesting history on their own.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the only other element we didn't really touch on yet is the final portion of the novel, which involves... Oh, actually, there's a third piece we haven't touched on. Which is the major part, but we'll get to it in a second. The final two battles at the end are Sanguinius versus Kabata and Sanguinius versus Angron.
Which I don't know why we needed both of those.
The reasoning is kind of dumb.
Okay.
Sanguinius versus Kabata is old lore. And the
so we had to do
against Kabata at the siege has been a thing for ages.
Okay.
Like, it was definitely going to happen.
Okay.
And I actually like that one better. Like, Kabata, it was a character that he defeated at Cygnus Prime, way back in Fear to Tread.
Okay.
And so it was definitely a rematch.
Mm-hmm.
We see Kabata sort of having fallen from Khorne's grace and trying to build himself back up again in order to face off against Sanguinius. I really like that.
Okay.
Sanguinius still defeats him, which is fine. Like, that was sort of expected.
Yeah.
Then Angron shows up, and it feels, at the start, almost the same.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much banging heads, like banging someone's head against a wall or ground.
Yeah.
Like, that happened a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Oh, also, take a shot every time the same word is repeated 3 times in a row in this book. My God, does that happen?
There's a lot of blood, skull, skull.
A lot of that. That got a little tiring.
Yeah.
The fight with Sanguinius and Angron, it just felt too rehashed. And then there's a scene at the end where Sanguinius rips out Angron's butcher's nails, and like that, it like chunks of his skull come with it.
Yeah.
And I actually really like that, but people seem to be on like not.
People don't love it.
They don't love it because the word begged gets used, and I don't think I think people are definitely over angry about that particular element of it.
Yeah, I don't remember having strong feelings about it.
It's a single word in which Angron, in one final moment of clarity, says no. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember feeling strongly about it one way or another, and demon Primarchs being demon Primarchs, I wasn't like, oh man, Angron's
No,
dead.
he'll be back.
He'll be back. Yeah. So like
in the current lore, he's back right now.
Okay. Yeah, knowing that about demon Primarchs makes any killing of them not super impactful for me. Yeah.
Speaking of, there's this whole story element that we missed, which is Vulcan versus
Vulcan's
Magnus.
alive. Yep.
Yeah. Vulcan has been basically gone into the Imperial Webway portal to hunt down Magnus.
Yeah, I actually like that. It doesn't really result in anything super impactful, so I forgot about it. But I enjoyed it.
So for those who didn't read Fury of Magnus, which is basically Magnus making his way into the Imperial Webway and meeting with Malkador, killing him, but he comes back. And
everyone comes back.
And meeting with the Emperor. It's basically the final moment in which Magnus goes full Demon Primarch for the most part.
Yeah.
And so what we see in this book is Vulcan sort of creating a rematch against Demon Primarch Magnus. And there is some cool imagery here in which Magnus is going, using everything he can to try and defeat Vulcan, and Vulcan just keeps regenerating.
Yeah.
I just feel the dialogue was a little
kind of stilted.
A little stereotypical.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It's the same. It's arguments that we've seen over and over again. Part of that, I think, is because now that he's full Demon Primarch, Magnus has lost himself.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I just don't think Vulcan put up that great of an argument in response to it.
Yeah.
I don't think this is meant to retcon anything that happened in Fury of Magnus. I think it is supposed to be Fury of Magnus was a much more human Magnus, and this is way more Demon Primarch Magnus in the full throes of Tzeentch at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it was fine. I like Vulcan all right, and I am sympathetic to Magnus.
Yeah, I thought this was a good portrayal of Vulcan.
Yeah. Otherwise,
not that I love any portrayal of Vulcan, honestly.
He's alive.
Shut up. Psst. Shut up.
He lives.
No. Go away. My God, do I hope he's currently dead.
Okay.
I want him on the list of Primarchs that is definitely not coming back.
Never coming back?
Yeah.
He's probably alive.
Alongside Sanguinius and Ferrus Manus.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, is that all the things? All the big things?
I think so. So what was my final rating for this book?
Oh, you gave it an official score.
No, not an official score.
I would give it a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Maybe a 9. 8.75. I'm gonna call it 8.75 out of 10. I don't give out 10s. So.
I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards a 7.
Oh, that's lower than me.
Yeah.
Well, you did have a lot of complaints.
Yeah.
I really had no complaints. I thought it was... I like that it's a standalone story. I clearly saw the parts that were connected to previous Siege books, and I thought it was enough of that storyline. And I thought it was really beautifully written. It was just enjoyable to read. I couldn't put it down.
There were many beautifully written parts to it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just certain story elements. I either thought, we saw this already, or,
I could accept that. I'll take my 8.75 and make it an 8.5.
Okay.
That's it, though.
Yeah. Oh, there's an ending we didn't talk about, which is what happens to Latara Saren.
It's not good.
It's not good.
It's not good.
No. I don't even know if I want to spoil it here.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, read this book.
I hold that if you haven't read any other Siege of Terra books, this is a great one to read. So I'm not going to spoil that because it's really good at the end.
All right.
I think that's everything.
What are we doing next time? It's not a Siege of Terra, right?
No, so we're switched to Warhammer Horror.
Yes, because it's spoopy season.
It is, yes. When we are recording this.
Yes.
And we will be reading the Oubliette.
Yes.
Oubliette?
It's called an Oubliette, which is a hole in the ground that you keep people in. So spoilers, some people might be in a hole in the ground.
Okay.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.